Ever come across a name and thought, how do I even say that out loud? Well, get ready for today's deep dive, because you asked for the lowdown on stand-up comedian Harry Fucks.
Fucks.
Exactly. You can see why that might cause a double take, especially in this audio-only format.
Definitely a bold choice. So you sent over his website bio and a live set recording aiming to dissect his comedic style.
Spot on. And right away, his bio throws us a curveball. It says comedy is his coping strategy, which feels surprisingly honest, like a glimpse behind the curtain of humor. What do you think of that?
Oh, for sure. It hints at the depth beneath the surface, which we often see with comedians. They take life's absurdities, their own struggles, and turn it into laughter.
Right.
But before we go too deep there, let's back up. His background is fascinating. Over 6 years performing, even internationally, corporate gigs for companies like Google.
Talk about range. His bio even mentions handling everything from intimate clubs to outdoor shows with thousands of people. Big crowds don't faze him.
And that experience shines through in the live set you shared. You can tell the energy, how he chats with the audience. This club atmosphere is his comfort zone.
It's like that part in his bio where he mentions using Instagram for self-promotion, even at 51. He's in the digital age, which most comedians nowadays have to be.
Absolutely. He's building a brand alongside the jokes, and that online presence is key. But what's interesting is, even with social media, his comedy is classic stand-up, offering sets from 5 minutes to a full hour for adults only or clean crowds, depending on the venue. He's adaptable, which is huge in comedy.
Speaking of adaptable, let's get into his material. What's he actually joking about in this live set?
Well, from what I heard, he seems drawn to the chaos of getting older, the minefield of modern dating, especially those apps.
Oh yeah, those apps. He dives right into that world, like that bit about women doing the duck face in photos.
And it killed with his audience. It's a perfect example. He takes something so specific a pose we all know from dating profiles, maybe cringe at a little, and exaggerates it, makes it hilarious by highlighting the absurdity.
And he's not afraid to poke fun at himself either, which seems to be a running theme. But I noticed, even though some jokes are for mature audiences only, they're still relatable.
100%. He's not just being edgy for shock value. He's tapping into universal experiences.
Yeah.
Getting older, feeling lost in the digital dating world. And he does it with this sharp wit and self-awareness that just clicks.
Totally. So he's got the experience, the online presence, and he's reading his audience perfectly. But there's a layer here I'm curious to unpack that, are we dating the same guy? Facebook group he talks about in his set. Now that takes things in a whole other direction, right?
It does, and it gives us a fascinating look at how the digital age impacts comedians' lives, sometimes in ways they never expect.
And for Harry, it seems like it got personal. This anecdote feels less like a bit more like a real life thing that stuck with him.
Exactly, and I think that's where things get really interesting because it's in those vulnerable moments where online and offline collide that we see the man behind the jokes most clearly.
So for those of us who haven't encountered this online phenomenon, what exactly is this? Are we dating the same guy Facebook group?
Basically, it's a space for women to, well, talk about guys they've dated, sharing red flags, warnings. You get the idea.
Which, on the surface, sounds kind of helpful for navigating the dating world. But with Harry, it didn't quite work out that way, did it?
Nope. He actually shares that the woman he was seeing posted his profile in this group.
Oh, no.
And the feedback from the other women wasn't exactly glowing.
He reads some of the comments out loud in the set, right? The audience is caught between laughing and feeling super awkward.
Yeah. It's such a great comedic tightrope walk because he's acknowledging how absurd it is, someone putting your dating life on blast like that.
And he's a comedian who's all about self-deprecating humor. So he's used to minding his own life for material, but here it feels like the online world hit him in a way he didn't expect.
That's what makes this story so interesting. He doesn't brush it off.
Yeah.
He admits it got to him, the comments about his looks, his personality, some of which he reads aloud, they stung.
It's like the vulnerability we talked about is suddenly center stage, and you realize even someone who uses humor as a shield can be hurt by online criticism.
It shows the unique pressure of being a comedian in the digital age, right? It's not just bombing on stage anymore. Your whole life, your relationships, your flaws, it's all amplified online. Inescapable.
And it makes you wonder how much of his self-deprecating humor is really him versus a persona. It blurs the lines in a fascinating way.
It does. And it gets to the heart of what humor is. We might laugh at a joke about his pubic hair looking like hipsters moving into a bad part of town.
Which, by the way, is hilarious and strangely accurate.
Right. But we also see this vulnerability that we can't ignore.
It's like he's inviting us to laugh at him, but reminding us that comedians are human, with insecurities like everyone else. And sometimes those insecurities are blown up online in ways that are funny, but also unsettling.
Totally. And let's not forget the range he shows in this set. He goes from those over-the-top bits, that line about his penis being the most motivated part of him had people howling, to these genuinely vulnerable moments, all in a few minutes.
He's like a comedic chameleon shifting gears, keeping the audience guessing. It's that unpredictability, that mix of being outrageously funny and unexpectedly vulnerable, that makes him so captivating.
Absolutely. And that, I think, is what resonates with audiences, especially those who get what it's like to get older, dealing with love and relationships in a digital world.
He's like the voice for the awkward, the aging, the single folks trying to find humor and connection in a world obsessed with youth and being perfect. And that's something we can all relate to.
Totally agree. So we've covered his online presence, his comedy style, that vulnerability he shows. What stands out to you as the most fascinating thing about Harry Fuchs?
Honestly, it's that willingness to be vulnerable, to pull back the curtain and let the audience see the real him that makes Harry stand out. He's found this incredible balance between self-deprecating humor and genuine introspection.
It's like he's saying, hey, let's laugh at the awkward realities of life together, the aging process, those cringy moments we all have in the digital age. And by doing that, he connects with the audience on a deeper level than just telling jokes.
He even makes turning 50 kind of sound appealing with that bit about the only part of him still motivated being,
Well,
you know,
the slang teen
yeah.
line. Oh yeah, that one brought the house down. It's outrageous, over the top, but there's a truth to it that makes it relatable, even if you'd never say it out loud. It speaks to that universal experience of aging, how our bodies and priorities change.
And his delivery, with that twinkle in his eye, you can't help but laugh even if you're cringing inside a little. He's mastered walking that line between edgy and endearing.
Totally. It's a tough balance, but he makes it look effortless. And it goes back to his experience like we were talking about. He's been doing this long enough to know what works, to read the room, to push boundaries, and when to hold back.
It's like he has this innate understanding of what makes us human, what makes us laugh, what makes us cringe, the things that connect us no matter our age or background.
And that's what's so great about comedy, right? Done well, it reflects society, our own vulnerabilities, and lets us laugh at ourselves. In a world that feels increasingly divided, that shared laughter, that connection, it was more important now than ever.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
So, wrapping up our deep dive into the world of Harry Fuchs, what's the key takeaway for our listeners?
I think it's this. Harry Fuchs isn't just a comedian. He's a sharp observer of human nature, a master of language, someone who uses humor to explore the complexities of life in the digital age. His comedy mixes wit, relatable anxieties, and this unexpected vulnerability, all delivered with confidence and self-awareness that's both refreshing and hilarious.
Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Would his style of humor land differently with a younger crowd, maybe less familiar with aging and more used to the online world he jokes about? It's something to consider how our experiences and our relationship with technology shape how we understand and connect with humor, especially humor rooted in the human experience.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting. It's not just about getting one comedian's jokes. It's about understanding ourselves, our relationship with technology, and how powerful humor is, reflecting and shaping our experiences in this digital age.
The perfect note to end on. A huge thanks to our expert for this insightful look into the world of Harry Fuchs. And to our listeners, we hope this deep dive gave you a deeper appreciation for the man behind those jokes, the stories he tells, and how stand-up comedy keeps evolving in the digital age.